artist, teacher, and lover of chocolate, Michele Barrow-Belisle has always lived with one foot in the real world and one foot in the imaginary. So it follows that she would grow up to write about characters from the enchanting world she knows and loves so well. As a fan of romanticizing the mundane, Michele's young adult novels are populated with scintillating witches, elves, and fae, and her illustrated children's books reflect her otherworldly imaginings. Her best-selling debut series, Fire and Ice, the Fairy Song Saga, is currently in development for a major motion picture, which we'll be talking about today. So please join me in welcoming Michele Barrow-Belisle and our monitor, Giselle Liu.
How's everybody doing today?
Very good.
Nice. So we're gonna get right into it. And my first question is, how did you get started in your career?
Well, I have always loved writing, kind of like what my bio describes. I've kind of always lived in this imaginary fantasy world, and got told that a lot by teachers to get my head up in the clouds and get back to work. So the story that was optioned for film was my first book series, and I started writing that when my son was much younger, and I was reading a book series to him, and I very arrogantly thought, I think I could write something better than this. And so I started writing it, and then set it aside because I just got stuck in it, and I realized that I needed to age it up. It was for too young of an audience. And it was about the same time that Harry Potter and Twilight and all of those things had, sort of, and the teen genre in books and films were sort of exploding. I thought, okay, I think that's what's missing. It kind of needs to be for an older audience. So I kind of changed the plot, changed the characters, went that direction, and it all kind of worked out.
So what type of obstacles did you face when you were starting your career, and how did you overcome those ones?
Well, I mean, there were obstacles to the writing portion of it. Trying to figure out how to make the story really gripping and compelling and something that wouldn't put people to sleep. And I sort of created these characters and thought, I didn't want anything bad to happen to them because I really liked them, but of course you have to torture your characters, you have to make things difficult, you have to create obstacles and conflict and that sort of thing. So learning, it was a bit of a learning curve in really shaping the story into something that would be interesting to anybody who would read. And then once the story was finished, of course, there's the whole other obstacle of selling it, getting an agent and getting a publishing house to buy it. And then after that part was done, I also, on my own, went out to look for a producer and sold the film option. Yeah.
How did you find a producer?
I did a lot of social media networking. And it's so funny because I started a course because I get asked by authors all the time, and it was just sort of grassroots networking, conversations, talking to people, getting to a place where it was like, okay, I've written this book, would you be interested in taking a look at it? And he said yes, and he said, I probably won't get back to you for 6 months or so because I'm completely swamped, and I thought I'll probably never hear from you again. And I think it was like 4 or 5 days later, he said, I'm 3 chapters in, and I already am feeling like, we need to make this a movie. So it was pretty exciting. Yeah, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And another question, so you've also started a book-to-screen course. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what this course entails?
Yeah, so that was it's the number one question that I was getting asked by authors, and I love to share that information. But I feel like, sometimes I get these friend requests on Facebook, and it's kind of like, hey, I'm an author, buy my book. And it's like, well, yeah, no, it doesn't really work like that. You can't just, throw stuff into people's faces. You have to build and develop some kind of relationship, some sort of, conversation and that sort of thing. So this course kind of takes authors through all the steps that I went through, including things like, creating a log line and a treatment and being able to pitch their story effectively, and then make those connections and that sort of thing. Yeah. Oh, so many along the way, really. Like with the writing, I think a lot of the aha moments came earlier on when I was sort of, in learning how to shape the story. But it's been really interesting, the adaptation process of taking a story from the book to like that's just been, and I'm not writing the script myself because, that's just beyond my skill set at the moment. But I'm going to co-write it. So it's a learning experience. Just sort of, they said to me, okay, we have to take your 400-page book and cut it down to 100 pages. Sort of, my jaw dropped. I thought, how on earth can we do that? And that's the process.
Would you ever consider writing screenplays in the future?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear your question. Would you consider
Writing screenplays in the future?
Yeah, for sure.
So are you working on any books or projects right now? Can you share anything about that?
I am. I always have so many on the go.
Yeah.
I'm working on a new series that I was actually in talks with a couple of studios during TIFF for an adaptation, perhaps into a TV series. So there's two books that have been already published in those series, and then 2 more that I'm working on. And then there's also the 5th book in the Fairy Song Saga, which is my initial book series. It was supposed to be a trilogy originally, and now it's expanded into 6 books. So, yeah. I thought that when I had the idea for one, I honestly thought it was going to be 1 book, and that was it, and that's all I had in me. And now it's like, Niagara Falls. It just keeps coming. But still.
That's amazing. That's really, really good.
Fun.
There's also one more thing I want to ask you about is you have a Passion Tell Us Limits series?
That was, something that I'm not doing it currently, but a friend and I, we used to listen to a lot of telesummits, and I feel like mindset is a huge piece in all of this, and in being successful and happy and all that sort of thing. So what we did is we put together our own telesummit, basically, where we would interview all of our favorite speakers from all sorts of different areas, and presented that, and the people could call in and ask questions and stuff. And it was really great. I think everybody got a lot out of it.
How did you get into that part?
Well, it was actually through a friend who she used to run these really sort of small group law of attraction type workshops. And so it was through her, and I've always had an interest in that sort of thing too. So, yeah.
Is there any questions from the audience? I think I saw your hand up.
You want to give the mic? Give him the
I
mic.
actually have a question. How did you find the law of attraction work help you in terms of, because I'm into that. So
Are you? Yeah.
before you even said what you were saying, I was thinking of the law of attraction, and you said law of attraction.
See, there you go.
So how did that manifest anything?
Do you know what? I think for me, it's always kind of been there behind the scenes, but I never had a name or a label for it until The Secret. Of course, that was kind of like, the thing that exploded it, and then we had all the language to go with it. And since then, I've been devouring everything like that. Yeah, I just find it fascinating.
But did you find that in terms of aligning yourself in a certain way? Because as soon as you said aligning, you said, it's like, I know what you're talking about, I know what you're doing. So did you find that really influenced the way things moved?
Absolutely, yeah. Like in the course, I have a line that says, intention plus action equals magic. And I truly believe that, because that's sort of how the way things have unfolded. I sort of set my sights in a direction, but couldn't actually predict the way that it would happen, but
But you knew what?
yeah.
Sorry, yes, you had a question.
You want to give the mic? Yeah. If you don't mind, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, when you first approached the producers, saying I have a book, were your book already published or self-published, or was that more like a first draft or something?
Thank you, Giselle.
Like as a script?
It was already published. It was very recently published. The thing was that neither my agent nor my publisher had sort of the proper connections to anybody in the film and entertainment industry to pitch it successfully. So I just sort of went out and did it myself, because I'm like, this really needs to happen. I just sort of felt that was the direction I wanted things to go. Yeah.
Any more questions for you guys?
you see yourself writing also for adults? If you know, would you see yourself writing for kids and adults and teenagers and sort of hitting different markets?
I do, yes. I currently write for like across actually the whole age span. Yeah, it's fun.
Any advice you would give writers?
To write. Like so many people say, I'd love to write a book. I would love to write a book. One day I'd love to, and then they don't write a word. Yeah, it's like, right. There's absolutely no barrier to it, just, you know, except for actually doing it. So yeah, that's the best advice.
Another question here. Would you actually see yourself like actually writing a screenplay and then directing it, like to have like a vision more faithful to what you really have in mind?
I would absolutely love to do that, and I've been very fortunate because the producer who optioned my first book series wants me very involved in the project and wants to keep it as close as possible to the original story, and that's not always the case, right? But yeah. So I would love that. I would love to learn. Like I find the industry fascinating. The more I learn about it, the more I want to be a part of it. So yeah, it would be very cool.
Hi, I'm listening to hear you speak. So what sort of themes do you focus on?
A lot of love conquers all. I think that was probably one that is threaded through all of my stories. Because there's always an element of romance in there, but there's also the element of, like, you know, self-empowerment and the power of choice and the power of, like, that you have inside of you. And I think that's part of why I love writing fantasy, because you can wrap that up really nicely and, you know, weave it into a story, into any kind of quest or anything like that. Yeah, so I think those are definitely the most prevalent ones.
Right.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
I have a question, because I know you write a lot of fantasy stuff. I know you write a lot of vampire, and not vampire, but fantasy. So is there like another genre that you would like to explore? Because I know it's mostly fantasy, but is there another type of stories that you would like to tell?
I would love to write rom-com, but I've been told I'm not very funny, so I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen, but I would love that. Contemporary is difficult for me because I just get, you know, I start writing and then I feel like, yeah, I need to throw in some vampires or something because I get a little bit bored, but...
Maybe a rom-com with vampires.
Yeah.
Better than Twilight, though.
So just to kind of give us more of an idea of a breakdown of, you know, the steps that it takes to get your book, like once it's published, to get it onto a screen, kind of like what are the steps that you've gone through and that you still have yet to go through to make that process happen and come to fruition?
Okay, well, I mean, there's probably quite a few that I'm not familiar with because we haven't crossed those bridges yet. But in terms of the book, I think there's a lot of crossover. So, you know, like I wrote a summary for it, for example, and from what I'm understanding, it's very similar to a treatment. So there's, and you have to write like a pitch line, which is, you know, a love line. So that aspect of it converts very nicely. Distilling something so large down into, you know, a 100-page script, for example, that is a part of the process that I'm still not sure I wrap my head around how that happens. I've read several scripts and I can sort of see the way, you know, like especially books that have been adapted already. And you look, I've read the original book and then you look at the script and you can sort of see how, you know, they break it down and take the main themes. But as the author, you know, it's very difficult to sort of pull threads and it's like, okay, this is important and this isn't. And I was like, I feel like I did that when I was in the editing stage before it got published. I cut away all the stuff that I didn't need. So that part is, you know, a bit of a learning curve. And yeah, and so I mean, I sat in with the producer on some of the meetings, like where they set the budget budget and we've got the funding and that sort of thing. And there's so many moving pieces, like it's fascinating. And yeah, a lot more to come. Yeah.
Any more questions from the crowd? I have one. What is your favorite word as a writer?
Wow. That's a really hard question for a writer to come up with just
It is.
one
Always
word.
changes.
Does it? Yeah. Wow. Oh, just my favorite word. I can't say all of them, right? Yeah. Do you know what? I really love the word dream. I'm thinking of my office and I have that word posted around quite a bit. So, yeah, I think that's
Any special meaning related to it, or it's just the follow your dreams and
yeah.
keep driven?
Yeah, definitely. Not asking for that dream bigger. Keep dreaming, follow your dreams, all of those really great sayings. But, yeah, I love everything that it encompasses.
Yeah.
Really.
Do you also have a process where you're getting ready to write? Do you have a step? Do you like start by plotting out your characters, or plotting out like your scenes, or? So I know for script writing you have to have your characters, you have to have your scenes, they have to keep going, and you have to have.
Yeah.
Is there a similar process for that, maybe, or is it just pretty much write?
Well, before, I used to just write. And so what would happen is I'd have a whole bunch of chapters or a whole bunch of scenes. They'd be in the wrong order. I'd have to reorder them. It would take forever and ever and ever. Now I've started seeing the merits of plotting and, sort of pre-planning the story. And even if I have kind of like an idea of where it's going to go, I find that if I have like at least some sort of framework or map to follow, then I don't, the characters don't end up way off base from where they're supposed to be, and then I've got to work hard to get them back onto the storyline. So yeah, I definitely am a fan of plotting. And the characters, they just sort of develop themselves actually. I really feel like I can just sort of picture them, and they come with their own personalities and voices and appearance and that sort of thing, which is, you can only say that in certain circles because people look at you strange. Yeah.
Is there any more questions from everybody? Well, thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being able to market for you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.